Greetings and salutations. I am Gregory, and this is 1 in 20 D&D. Welcome to another recap for the VÄRLDEN Reach, our D&D game we play weekly on Saturday nights, and this is for session 20. Pretty big milestone for us, so let's dive right in. I'm calling this session the bonding session because there was so much character interaction. We had a lot of interplay between all the different characters individually and also, or in pairs, I should say, and then also a really important moment where the whole group had kind of this moment of getting to know each other or coming together over some important stuff. So really awesome, fun role-playing session again. And we started out in the town of Visca, where we had just found out there from one of the contacts Marana has that perhaps this woman with the snake tattoo that we're looking for, who we believe to be the leader of the Black Ravens, she didn't have any information on her, but she gave us 3 contacts, and that was kind of where we ended our last session. After which we talked with Lord Blackwood, who mentioned these findings that he had and his desire to get an adventuring party to go and look into an old laboratory of the Mad Mage. Now, we sent message to the Voctaire back to Crag to say, hey, Blackwood, blah, blah, blah. He came back and responded, well, we need you back in Unity. So we decided to leave right away, right after lunch, basically. We were all pretty much packed and ready to go. Spent a half day traveling, and there were the subsequent nights and days were pretty uneventful with one exception. There was one morning where we were all kind of like getting our horses ready, packing our gear, and we saw a cart go by, and the cart was manned by these figures with these white masks. And the driver actually looked at us as it went by, and it kind of like creeped us all out a little bit. And Marana mentioned, or we all kind of recalled, or some of us recalled Marana mentioning that she had seen these similar, garbed figures on a boat leaving Orison sometime back, a couple weeks ago, I guess, when we went through Orison. So that was the only significant event that happened on the trail back to Unity. However, there was a lot of character development moments that happened on the trail, and it was really exciting. One of the things that happened that was fantastic is that we had a couple of different moments. I think the very first and really cool, one of the coolest moments was between Tracy's character Lily and Courtney's character Pyre. Lily had a dream. I guess that was another significant event that happened during during this trip back to Unity. But however, that was only for one of the characters, so that was kind of a character-specific thing that happened. And so Lily had this dream again, this kind of visionary dream, which is, again, it's leading her more and more and more towards going to handle, which she doesn't want to do, but it's also revealing some things. So I think in this, if I remember correctly, in this dream vision, she recalled, or I should say, Ayuz, her deity, Ayuz, gave her a vision of what happened, why she became a slave. Essentially, her dad was in debt so badly that the person he was in debt to threatened that if he didn't give his daughter over, Lily over, then all of his sons were going to be basically fall into trouble with the law and probably end up dead. So it was kind of like her or your sons. And so he made this choice. It's like, unmakeable choice, but he had to make it. So that's why Lily became his slave. And she didn't share that with us, so that's totally player knowledge. But it was a really impactful moment for Lily. There were some other things, again, this kind of imagery of like handle, and I use kind of, trying to say, hey, you have to heal from this. You're a good person. You have to become the hero that you are. You're a good person, and there's a reason I've gifted you, or I've granted you these powers, these divine powers. do good in the world, you know, make a difference in the world, set things right. So it was really cool. Now, of course, these are my words. Mark, our DM, the Bearded Bugbear, did a fantastic job of expressing this kind of dream, and it was an awesome sequence. So she woke up in kind of like freaking out a little bit, and woke up and basically puked her guts out, which is funny because this is the second time that Pyre has seen one of our members puke their guts out pretty much within like less than 24 hours, because after our lunch with Blackwood, I believe Marana went outside and puked her guts out or something like this. So Pyre's kind of getting this funny view of this group, and well, anyway, this was on while Lily was sleeping. Pyre was on watch. So Lily was waking up to relieve Pyre, but basically woke up in like a cold sweat or something, and not comfortable. And Pyre, so Courtney had Pyre make this really beautiful moment of like of compassionate caring, like, do you want me to stay up with you? Do you need some company for your watch? And it was just awesome, and it led into this beautiful role-playing sequence of these two ladies having this conversation and sharing a little bit about themselves and what they've been going through, what their concerns are. It was awesome. Now, another thing that happened both in that talk, but also on the way, so Pyre has been like slowly but surely, like whenever the moment kind of arises or seems appropriate, she's been asking us like who we are and where we're going and why we're a part of the Vactera and what is the Vactera and these kind of things, right? So these moments have kind of come up throughout the course of travel, but also happened a little bit in Visca and happened some more on the road. Now, one of the cool things that happened on the road for my character, for Jermaine, Perdita came up and asked Jermaine, he had promised to tell her the story about how he got his coin. Now, this coin, each of the characters, now we don't know about Pyre, but for sure the core group, the 4 players that started the mission way back 20 episodes ago, each have a trinket that they use. It's a kind of a minor magic item, gives them a little something to do, and they've had it since they met. And at one point along the way, this was a while back, Jermaine, when they were in the mountains hunting down the bandits, Jermaine had kind of just tried to make conversation and asked everyone like, hey, I've got this kind of funny little coin that I like to use, and I've seen some of you guys using some interesting items. Anybody want to talk about it? And nobody did. Well, Jermaine had promised Perdita to tell her about the coin and how he came by the coin. So she kind of rode up alongside him one of the days on the trip and said, hey, you told me about, you promised you'd tell me about the coin. And no time like the present. We got time. We're riding. Let me have it. So he kind of chuckled, and it was kind of funny because it coincided with some of the stuff that he's been dealing with. The farther they get from Falkirk and kind of the army and the memories of the past, his mood is starting to lighten, and he's kind of coming back to his normal self. So he's kind of breaking the melancholy he was in, I guess. So he's kind of happy to talk about it, even though it's kind of a sad subject. So he says, I got it from Xavier. It was Xavier's. And Xavier was Jermaine's best friend. And he died in the first major military combat that he and Jermaine were in. So a little bit more about Lily's backstory, a little bit about Courtney's backstory, a little bit about Jermaine's backstory. He shares this thing about how he came by the coin. When Jermaine believed he was the only person that knew about the coin that Xavier had. And he was afraid that if he didn't take it from his buddy, that after the battle, that either somebody would have looted it, or they would probably tried to return it to his relatives they wouldn't have known what it was. And so he thought Xavier probably would have wanted him to have it. He feels a little bit guilty about it, but he kind of believes that's what Xavier would have wanted. So he shared this with Perdita, asks Perdita about her. He said, and you have this kind of special arrow, right? And so Perdita says, yeah, and it was the only thing that was found with her. When she was found 12 or 13 years ago, this arrow was found with her. So she's had it, all of her memories, as long as she remembers, she's had this arrow, which I think is super cool. And it was really cute because at one point during the conversation, Jermaine was talking about the coin and how Xavier and Jermaine, they used to play dice while they were in the army to pass the time. And this piqued Lily's interest. So she kind of like rode up sort of kind of in between us, or maybe just a hair behind us to like, and sort of listened in on some of the conversation. And then quipped up at one point about, you know, I don't remember what exactly it was. It was very funny. It was really comedic and wonderfully timed. And then she kind of mentioned, and then I think Jermaine asked her, like, oh, and what about, you have that dagger that, you know, that comes back to you, and how did you get it? And she's like, well, I took it off the man I killed, who happened to be my slave master. Like, dope. So it was this kind of like, almost a slap in the face, or like cold water in the face moment of like, oh, that's kind of intense. And at the same time, it was this, I feel like it was almost like a bit of a purging maybe for Lily. I don't know. I mean, I kind of wonder, I guess, what Tracy was thinking or how she feels about that. But from Gregory's perspective, it seems like, I wonder, or I would imagine that for Lily, this might be a little bit of Lily. She's starting to air some of the thing, and IU's has been encouraging her, and so she's kind of been taking that to heart and trying to do that, trying to like build some bridges between her and the other characters, and it's been awesome. And so she shared with us, and I feel like it's almost like she's kind of like, she admitted to it. It's like you're admitting to your guilt or something, I guess, or admitting to something that you did and maybe has been hanging over your head. So I don't know. I kind of hope that's maybe lifted some of the burden, but who knows, right? That's for Tracy to figure out for Lily. So that was kind of fun on the road. Some other stuff. Miranda had a brief conversation with Perdita. There was a little bit of conversation with just a bunch of little small conversations happened along the road. You know, Pyre's been tinkering with her gadgets and with sparks and so forth. We get back to Unity, check in with Crag, and Jermaine and Lily had a really important development. And I'm going to jump around a little bit here. So we get back to Unity, we go to see Crag. Jermaine's habit or his pattern has been to refer to Crag as Master Crag. Crag is the master at arms, or master of arms, whichever you prefer, for the Vaktir. And Jermaine is a military guy, so out of respect, he still has this kind of military thinking that he was in the army for 10 years. So like Thane is the commander. So he calls the commander Thane, right? He talks to Crag, master at arms, Master Crag. So he says Master Crag just in their conversation. But this time he noticed something. He noticed that every time he said master, Lily kind of winced at this word, right? So Jermaine's not a dummy. He reads people, he understands people, and he's been slowly but surely getting to know his teammates. And he knows at least a little bit about the fact that Lily was a slave. And so now he's kind of like put two and two together, and it's like this like open mouth insert foot, you know, kind of moment of, you know, putting your foot in your mouth. And so Jermaine, who's this, he really cares about his team a lot because they put their lives on the line for him. And this is one of the most important, I mean, for him, that's like above and beyond everything else. That's next to family. Someone who fights alongside you is, you know, they're worth dying for. And if they're willing to die for you and you're willing to die for them, that's family as far as he's concerned. So he has this moment of like, oh no, what have I been doing? Well, it doesn't really hit home until later. So Perdita wants to go see her mom after we talk to Crag. So we get our new keys because Morana had sent a message via Perdita and the book to Crag to, hey, Alina and Titus left. We need to change the locks on our unit house. So Crag had that done. So we get our keys. So we can go to our unit house. Not Courtney. Sorry. Pyre and Jermaine and Perdita go to see Perdita's mom and pick up some tasty treats, right, at the bakery. Morana and Lily decide they're going to go back to the unit house. So while the three of them go to see Perdita's mom, Kylie, and say hello and let her know we're in town and get some treats for the house while we're in town. Miranda and Lily go back to the house. The first thing Miranda does is search her room and kind of look around the house to see if anything's missing. Nothing's missing. She goes in and checks Alina's room. There's nothing in Alina's room. Apparently, Alina had taken everything she owned with her. Lily goes into the unit house, goes up straight into her room, and starts to thrash her room. So it's like all of this stuff has been building up for poor Lily, and between the dreams and being faced with the fact that she's probably going to have to go to Handle because there's some, things just keep pointing to Handle. So it's like all this stress and tension has built up in her, and she just kind of goes ballistic. Well, there's like crash, bang, and she's cussing up a storm. And of course, Miranda's in the house. She hears it. So Miranda comes in and is like, are you okay, Lily? To which, Lily's just saying, yeah, just, she's just throwing stuff around, making sure not to hit Miranda, just like venting. She's just venting. And Miranda basically says, there are practice dummies in the yard that I like to use. Perhaps you could try that. And so Lily sort of kind of reluctantly agrees, goes out in the yard, and this was an awesome moment between Miranda and Lily. So Miranda and Lily don't trust each other, don't care for each other. Lily, because of her thing with she kind of is standoffish with everyone at first until she gets to know them, it seems. She was a little afraid. I think Lily was very intimidated and afraid of Miranda at the very beginning of the game. So she's starting, again, they're having these moments, starting to warm up. Apparently Miranda doesn't care for clerics. So that we're not 100% sure about what that's about. And I'm not sure how many of us are really aware of that. The players are really aware. I mean, the characters are aware of it, but they're starting to connect on some level. They're starting to connect. Miranda's like, Lily's kind of like, well, okay, so what am I supposed to do? And Miranda's like, well, she makes a fist and she punches it. You kind of hit it and get, this is what I like to do if I need to vent. So Lily's like, okay, so she kind of tries it, and it's like, she gets the idea, and Miranda's like, yeah, okay, but maybe a little harder. So Lily, who had just received this vision dream a few days earlier of her father and what happened and all this, creates a minor illusion of her dad's head on top of this practice dummy. And then she proceeds to take her knife and chuck it at the head over and over and over and over to vent her frustrations. It's just awesome. Super cool. I mean, this is Gregory's perspective. Super cool character development moment of venting and having this bond with Miranda and expressing what this character is going through, and it was just awesome. Sorry about that. So it was just awesome. So she comes back, so we come back, the three of us, Jermaine, Perdita, and Pyre come back to the house, and we hear this thunk, and then a couple minutes later, thunk, and a couple minutes later, thunk, as we're walking up to the house. So we're like, what's going on here? And we go out back, and we see Miranda and Lily in the back, kind of doing this thing. And Jermaine, now he was seeing how because I'm just assuming, or Gregory, I just assumed in the moment that Lily was just just enraged, almost chucking this dagger over and over and over. And so Jermaine, again, he's putting two and two together, whatever. He's putting the pieces together. And he totally feels responsible for this. Now, I didn't say anything at the moment. I said Jermaine kind of bows his head and goes inside. So, or hangs his head and goes inside. Perdita said she was going to wait for Lily inside. It was late in the evening now, remember. So it's kind of I'm assuming it's around dusk, dark, getting dark. Eventually, Lily tires out. Her arm gets sore or tired or whatever. And Miranda and Lily come back inside. Pyre and everyone comes back inside. And so Jermaine kind of goes into the kegs we've gotten and pours himself an ale and kind of offers it does anyone want to have a drink or whatever? To which the group is kind of sure. So we're going to sit around the fire and whatnot. And as soon as he can, Jermaine walks over to Lily and basically says, Lily, please forgive me. I'm so sorry. I'm so in the habit of referring to my commanders or superiors, out of respect, using it didn't occur to me at first what that name might mean or that word might mean to you. Please forgive you. And again, I just adore how Tracy plays Lily. I'm blessed. Okay, here's another little aside for you all. I've been playing D&D for over 30 years. For the first 20-ish years, it was almost unheard of for ladies to play D&D. I knew there were gals. I had played with some gals, but it was in my experience, there were not a lot of women that played D&D. And now I'm in a session where our dungeon master's a man, I'm my man, and we have four. We have had four women playing in the game with me. And it's just incredible as a guy because, especially during the role playing, the things that happen, the things that are said from one character to another are so different than what most guys might say in game, in combat. And it's really fascinating for me as a player, as a man, and for my character, Jermaine. There's all these moments that keep happening that are just so heartfelt. And I'm moved by this game, and it's awesome and epic. And this is what it's all about. I think I almost feel like I was missing this for the first 20 years, but I love the combat. So it's hard. I love combat. I love all the fighting and the adventure and the puzzles and all that stuff too. And now I'm getting this other side, or this other development of really creating a beautiful story with other people. So Lily says to Jermaine, it's okay, Jermaine. I don't blame you. I understand. You're one of the good ones. And it's just, there's these little, I almost want to call them like one-liners that Lily has that are just freaking brilliant. And everyone in this group has these moments of just, I treasure this game every week. It's so exciting. We go to meet with Crag the next morning. I almost skipped the most important thing in the session, at least for my perspective. All of that stuff was great. One of the most incredible things that happened in this session is while we're around the fire and kind of like relaxing this evening and just kind of back to our quote home now, Marana actually addresses the group and says more than like 3 words. And it's not about a mission or something. So she actually like shared with us and opened up a little bit about things, about like Alina, her sister, and it, again, it was just awesome. It's like, in her own way, I guess, she's trying to share with the group. She's a woman of few words, which is so cool. I love how TBQ plays her because it's almost like TBQ and Marana, almost like polar opposites, because TBQ is this very bubbly, vivacious woman, and Marana, at least from my experience, what I've seen, and Marana is this very closed, boxed in, very tightly wound woman. And so there's this moment where we're kind of sitting and Marana opens up a little bit, and it's like, wow. Totally unexpected and really cool. So in this that's why I'm calling it the bonding session. In this session, for the first time, I feel like for the first time, we had every single one of the characters had a moment in this session of backstory reveal, character development, and interaction with one or multiple other members of the party. That was really, really important and or meaningful. Well, probably both. Probably mostly important and meaningful. So it was just such a great session. So end of the night quietly, Jermaine went outside to kind of like reflect, be by himself for a minute. Perdita joined him. They're becoming best friends, and which is so awesome for me, for Gregory and Jermaine. Like, again, Jermaine has been missing that, I think, since Xavier died. And now that he's got this, not only does he have a team of people that he's coming to trust and deeply care for, he also has this young lady who he is really feel like sister kinship, but even almost more best friend, like someone who he feels like who he could fight back to back with. really strong bond developing, I feel like, between Perdita and Germaine, and it's so nice. It's wonderful for me to play because, and especially since Morgan, you are such a wonderful actress or role player, whatever you want to call it. You are very easy to. Everyone in this group is so easy to interact with, and the flow is just so wonderful. We keep getting these delicious moments. So she comes out to join Germaine, and they basically just kind of like sit there. And like look at, they're both like, hey, it's a nice night out, isn't it? Yeah, it's pretty beautiful. Look at the stars. I hadn't really noticed them recently. And that's about it. They just sit and kind of have this quiet moment. I love it. It's awesome. So all these great stuff, just moments like that throughout this whole session. And I guess we sort of ended the session by going back to see Crag. Now, when we went to see Crag, we actually ended up seeing Crag, Marison the Undying One, Rickard, her confidant, or her, her counselor, or whatever you want to call her best friend, I don't know, this other person, advisor, and Thane. So all four of them are in there for this meeting with us, ostensibly to talk about missions and developments, but I think also to get a read on Pyre. I mean, that's Gregory, is what Gregory's thinking. Germaine might suspect that too, probably. I think he probably would. He's kind of a sharp enough guy. So we have this conversation. We introduce Pyre. We say she's been amazingly helpful along the way, but we also, more importantly, she's got this incredibly powerful weapon that she created, and we think it's worth it to help her get it back. And maybe if we can find out what happened to her people as well, because her whole clan was, decimated. Now, Pyre had this really cool fun interplay with Crag. Crag is a dwarf. Pyre speaks Dwarven. And Lily, Tracy again, beautifully, funnily, Tracy keeps having Lily she basically told Pyre, Lily said to Pyre, like, you're a dwarf. Like, you're a dwarf. Your parents are dwarfs. You're a dwarf. And so she keeps saying that and referring to it as becoming this little bit of a running joke. And Pyre, when she met Crag, she's had these little bits of interplay with Crag of speaking Dwarvish, which is kind of fun because none of the rest of us speak Dwarvish. So, long story short, to kind of wrap things up, Master Crag, again, he's the master at arms. He wants to see this weapon, of course, because both as his career has interest to him, but also because he's part of the Vactaire, he has interest in it, protecting the realm and so forth. So we go outside so Pyre can demonstrate this weapon and basically get us told, okay, you've got to track down this weapon. That's kind of the most important thing. There's some trouble brewing between the Elven and Dwarven. There's some tension, I should say, brewing between the Elven and Dwarven kingdoms. So we might need to go and investigate that. And at some point, we do want you to go check out what's going on with this guy Blackwood and what, up in the mountains. We found out there's a silver dragon that kind of patrols and protects those mountains. So that's kind of interesting. And Germaine was stationed at the southern tip of those mountains, but he never heard anything about a silver dragon, never had to deal with that. So he's kind of intrigued. And so we find out that there's this, there's sort of a few things on the table that should be addressed as soon as can be. The most important thing is that Lily's mentor T, has basically approached the Vactaire and said, there is corruption within the church in Handel, in the Church of Ayuz in Handel, and he can't. The church doesn't have any way to deal with it, and they need the Vactaire's help. And so from these visions, and from now we find out we're going to be sent there, plus T, I think at some point, not T, but one of the other priests that Lily had a conversation with said something about the priest in Handel being a schmuck and a bad dude. So now we get to go kind of on some level, it seems like we're going to the snake's head, to the source, and dealing with this issue. So we're on our way to Handel, and that's kind of where we left things off. I think we're going to spend a little bit more time. There's a few loose ends to tie up in Unity, get some gear and get prepped and whatever. And then we're going to be on our way to Handel to go deal with the church, apparently, and clear out that infestation or whatever, corruption, whatever you want to call it. And at the same time, try to track down Pyre's missing equipment and her notebook, most importantly, the notebook, because gods forbid that this technology of gunpowder and weaponry fall into the wrong hands. It could totally change the face of the realm. So, oh my goodness, what an awesome session. And it was session 20, so how perfect was that? Thank you all. Really, every one of you players, Mr. DM, you all are fantastic. It is such a treasure and a treat each week to play this game with y'all. I am so thrilled. I hope if you are just randomly watching this video that you at least were mildly entertained in me. I don't even know what I do each week. I just try to wrap my head around what happened in the session and what does it mean to me as a person and also to Jermaine as a character. So there it was in the best nutshell I could put it into. What a fun session. Cannot wait. We're skipping this week, so we're going to be off for a week. I should be at the next session. There's a possibility I'll miss the session 21, but I'll do everything I can to be there for the next session because I cannot wait to see what happens. One way or the other, I look forward to every game. I look forward to seeing you all at the table someday. Thank you for stopping in. Please like, subscribe, share the video. You never know who might like it. And as always, keep rolling 20s.